The article, Godly Republicanism and Its Origins of the Massachusetts Polity by Michael P. Winship discusses the idea of republicanism in the Massachusetts colony. After giving a brief foreword setting the stage with the colonists' original form of government with Governor John Winthrop, the author delves into a brief yet detailed history of the ideas of republicanism in modern-day culture, as well as a detailed history of it during the time of the colonists and even during the time of Greece and the Roman Empire. In this discussion, Winship delves into the ideas of Presbyterianism and why it is meant to be the antithesis of tyranny and dictatorship. Michael Winship takes great pains to warn the reader from accepting any discussion of republicanism by historians as the type of republicanism that he discusses in the article about the Massachusetts Bay Colony, arguing that republicanism is often misdefined and misapplied in history. Winship discusses how the House of Commons and Britain's form of government served as a direct influence to how the Massachusetts Bay Colony set up its government, particularly how John Eliot would serve as influence for Governor Winthrop. In the article, Michael Winship states on page 442 that it had been driven home to them just how vulnerable Protestant subjects' liberties were when confronted by arbitrary government, and it was important to be willing to take drastic steps to prevent both. Liberty and godliness rose or fell together, just as Fenner had argued. Puritan ideology now had pronounced civic as well as religious dimension, unquote. Other authors and writers back up this idea that church and state, or rather, liberty and godliness, were linked together. Shira Wolosky writes on page 125 of her article, Biblical Republicanism, John Cotton's Moses, His Judicials, and American Hebrewism, that, quote, but the notion of the body politic itself took on new forms and meanings, not only in emulation of what was thought to be the character of early Christian congregations, but also as modeled on Hebrew scriptures' visions of polity and community. Other authors, such as Alan S. Rome, discuss this idea in his article, The Problem of Toleration in Early Massachusetts, that, quote, like many peoples of a Republican bent, they thus place their faith in a variant of what is now known as the marketplace of ideas. A person could be wrong, but not the people as a whole, unquote. Liberty truly was important to the people of Massachusetts Bay Colony, not simply the power of their church. Michael Winship finishes up the article with the discussion of the practicality of how the government was formed and how it was voted in and out of office. He argues that there was governmental accountability, albeit it was sometimes very limited. He discusses on page 460 and 461 how, quote, tyranny was the other against which Massachusetts liberty was defined, with anti-Christian tyranny an ongoing reality in that region that bloodily contested the borders of French Canada's sphere of influence. What he's referring to here is that tyranny was very much a problem that the colonists were aware of, and rather than accept that tyranny, the colonists made specific endeavors to avoid that in their government. Thus, they created forms of government that would be considered republican.